She walked into my house while I was presiding over a federal court hearing. That's not a figure of speech. It happened exactly as I said. A woman I had never officially met opened my front door, stepped inside carrying a clipboard, and acted as though she had every right to be there. What she didn't realize was that the man working the back office, dressed in full judicial robes, was actively conducting a federal court proceeding at that very moment. The fallout from that decision would permanently alter life in that neighborhood. But before we get into that, make sure you're subscribed. If you think this story is unbelievable now, wait until you hear what happened next. And while you're here, tell me where you're watching from. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. I've spent more than 2 decades serving as a federal judge. During that time, I've witnessed elaborate fraud schemes, public corruption cases, contempt hearings, and enough arrogance to fill several lifetimes. Very little manages to surprise me anymore. At least that's what I believed before my wife and I moved into Maplewood Estates. The neighborhood seemed ideal. Quiet streets, beautiful mature trees, excellent schools nearby. After years of city living, we were looking for something peaceful, somewhere we could enjoy retirement without constant noise and chaos. What nobody bothered to mention was that Maplewood Estates came with a homeowners association. And the homeowners association came with Brenda. Brenda wasn't just the HOA president. She also served as treasurer and had unofficially appointed herself the guardian of community standards. She even carried a laminated identification badge. A real laminated badge. She wore it everywhere. The first violation notice arrived just 2 weeks after we moved in. According to Brenda, our mailbox was positioned 4 inches too far from the curb. For inches. I measured it myself. Then I checked the HOA handbook, confirmed the rule, moved the mailbox, and went on with my day. It wasn't worth arguing over. Unfortunately, Brenda viewed things differently. The second warning concerned a garden hose that could supposedly be seen from the street. The third targeted our welcome mat. Apparently, the burgundy color wasn't included on the HOA's list of approved exterior decor. Curious, I called the phone number listed on the notice. Brenda answered immediately, almost as if she had been expecting my call. I politely asked how a welcome mat threatened the welfare of the community. She informed me that standards existed for a reason and suggested that if I didn't appreciate them, I should have purchased a home somewhere else. At that moment, I understood exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. During the following 2 months, 11 separate notices arrived. 11. One claimed the spacing between sections of our fence exceeded regulations by 1/4 of an inch. Another described my wife's flower pots as visually disruptive and inconsistent with neighborhood aesthetic expectations. Soon Brenda began conducting slow drive-bys in her white Cadillac. She would stop in front of our property, stare for several moments, jot notes onto her clipboard, then drive away. My wife wanted to confront her. I advised a different strategy. Document everything. Save every letter. Photograph every notice. Record every date and timestamp. Years on the bench had taught me one important lesson. Paper trails tell stories that people cannot easily deny. We were building ours. Meanwhile, Brenda was becoming more aggressive. She posted comments in the neighborhood Facebook group claiming our home was reducing property values. She publicly accused us of ignoring multiple official warnings. Official warnings. The woman was using that phrase to describe complaints about a welcome mat. Then she escalated things even further. She filed a formal HOA request demanding an interior inspection of our home. Let me explain why that mattered. The HOA had absolutely no authority to inspect the inside of any resident's house. None whatsoever. That's not how homeowners associations operate. I knew it. Any competent attorney would have known it. Brenda either didn't know or simply didn't care. The notice arrived on a Tuesday. The inspection was scheduled for Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I immediately responded by certified mail. In clear language, I informed the HOA that no representative possessed legal authority to enter my residence without permission. I also made it clear that permission would not be granted. To remove any confusion, I cited 3 separate statutes supporting my position. Then I signed the letter with my full legal name. Had Brenda spent even 30 seconds researching that name, she would have learned exactly who I was. She never bothered. Thursday arrived. I was working from home, something federal judges increasingly do through secure remote court systems. At precisely 2 p.m., I was seated in my home office wearing judicial robes and presiding over a sentencing hearing. 4 minutes later, I heard my front door open. I had not given anyone a key. The door had simply been left unlocked. My wife had stepped out a short time earlier and, in a small moment of forgetfulness that would soon have enormous consequences, failed to lock it behind. She had apparently mistaken an unlocked door for permission. I could hear her moving through the house. The sharp clicking of her heels echoed across the hardwood floors. A moment later, I heard closet doors opening. Then I heard her speaking on her phone. "I'm inside now," she said. Honestly, the house is very well kept, which makes these violations even more disappointing. That was enough. I asked the court reporter to note a short recess in the proceedings. Then I stood up, still wearing my judicial robe. I walked calmly down the hallway toward the front of the house. When Brenda turned and saw me, she stopped dead in her tracks. There she was, standing in my living room with a clipboard in her hands, staring at a federal judge in full robes. The expression on her face was unforgettable. The clipboard slipped downward before she caught it at the last second. I looked directly at her and spoke in the calmest voice I could manage. "You are currently inside my residence without permission. I strongly advise you not to take another step." She immediately began stumbling over her words. Her first offense was that she had mailed notice. I informed her that I had mailed a response. She insisted the HOA had authority to conduct the inspection. I suggested she contact legal counsel before continuing the conversation. To my surprise, she laughed. Then she asked, "My attorney? Do you have any idea who I am?" I replied with a question of my own. "Do you have any idea who I am?" The answer was clearly no. Most people would have recognized at that point that the situation had gone terribly wrong. Brenda was not most people. Embarrassment quickly turned into anger, and anger turned into stubborn determination. Instead of backing down, she escalated. Within days, she filed a complaint with the city alleging that I had intimidated and threatened her. Soon after, I received a letter from an attorney promising legal action for interfering with official HOA responsibilities. The attorney's name caught my attention immediately. Mitchell Carr. I knew exactly who he was. He had appeared before me on several occasions over the years. The lawsuit eventually worked its way through the normal court assignment process. Ironically, the matter landed in a courtroom where I held a courtesy appointment on the county bench. It was not a federal proceeding, but I was assigned to hear cases there as part of my responsibilities. The day of the hearing arrived. Mitchell Carr entered the courtroom carrying his files. Then he looked toward the bench. The moment he recognized me, the color drained from his face. It was almost impressive how quickly it happened. He immediately requested a recess. The request was granted. What happened during the conversation that followed occurred outside my presence, but I later heard enough details to understand the general picture. According to several accounts, Mitchell contacted Brenda and explained the reality of the situation in extremely direct language. He informed her that she had initiated legal action against a sitting federal judge because he objected to someone entering his own home without permission. Apparently, the phrase "catastrophic mistake" was used repeatedly. Brenda suddenly became interested in withdrawing the lawsuit. Unfortunately for her, events had already moved beyond that point. I had retained counsel and initiated my own legal actions. The claims included unlawful entry into my residence, a pattern of harassment and defamation arising from the statements she had posted online. My attorney happened to be a former law clerk who had worked for me years earlier. He approached the matter with remarkable attention to detail. Every letter, every notice, every photograph, every social media post, everything had been preserved. The HOA's insurance company reviewed the evidence and reached a settlement within 6 weeks. The neighborhood's reaction was swift. A special vote was organized to determine Brenda's future with the association. The result was decisive. 31 homeowners voted to remove her. Only 2 voted in favor of keeping her in office. One was her sister. The other was a resident named Gerald. To this day, nobody has ever provided a satisfactory explanation for Gerald. As for the famous laminated badge, neighborhood rumor holds that it was surrendered during a brief and remarkably quiet meeting in the parking lot outside the community center. No speeches, no celebration, just a silent handoff and the end of an era. The following spring, my wife decided to make a statement of her own. She planted rows of deep burgundy flowers across the entire front of our property. Every single flower could be seen clearly from the street. Oddly enough, no violation notices ever arrived. Not one. Looking back, there is something important I want people to understand. Brenda was not some extraordinary villain. She was something much more common. She was ordinary entitlement, ordinary arrogance, ordinary confidence that rules should apply to everyone else while exceptions should be made for her. The unusual part of the story wasn't Brenda. The unusual part was that she eventually targeted someone willing and able to challenge her behavior. Most of the people she dealt with simply gave in. They moved the mailbox. They hid the garden hose. They accepted the inconvenience because peace felt easier than conflict. And honestly, I understand why. I had resources, experience, and knowledge that many people don't have access to. Not everyone can fight back the same way. That's why, if you're dealing with your own version of Brenda, my advice is simple. Keep records. Save documents. Respond in writing. Learn your rights. And never assume that the person you're targeting is someone you fully understand. Brenda made that mistake. It cost her everything. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you're subscribed. There are plenty more HOA nightmares waiting just around the